Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Chris Moyer with Zpryme, and we've just had a wonderful discussion on how we pay for sustainability, all the optionality that we can do moving forward, whether it's public-private partnerships, investment, crowdfunding, many different options. But now we're going to shift focus and think about the essential role that the customer plays in both driving long-term sustainability and in the economic recovery that we need to focus on coming out of COVID-19. And to do that, I am so pleased to be joined by Denise Kruger, the Senior Vice President of Regulated Water Utilities at Golden State Water. Denise, welcome. Great to see you again, even though it's over a virtual platform. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Chris. It's great to be with you again. Appreciate you asking me to be here today.
Well, it's really our pleasure. You, of course, were kind enough to speak at the first WE3 event, and we've known each other in the industry now for a handful of years, and your work at Golden State Water is really exemplary when it comes to the topic at hand, which is how we connect with customers, how we create an infrastructure system that emphasizes that ultimate operational customer delivery. But for our audience that isn't as familiar with Golden State Water, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and the customers that you serve?
Sure, Chris. Thank you again, and I'm happy to do so. So Golden State Water Company is an investor-owned water utility, and we serve in over 80 communities throughout the state of California. So we own and operate 37 separate water systems. And these range in size from very small, fewer than 70 connections, to very large, serving over 75,000 connections. So in total, we serve about 260,000 connections. And so that equates to a little over 1 million people here in California. What's interesting for us is our territories span a wide variety, not only in size, and also the locations that we serve. So we serve in rural communities in Northern California, for example, big urban centers in Southern California, up in the mountains, down in the desert. So you name it, we seem to have it. And so it's a great company, and just it makes what I do a lot of fun.
Well, it is clear that perhaps it's all of that great diversity of service territories and types of customers that you get to serve that clearly does make it fun for you, and that excitement really emanates out of your work. But I can't imagine that it has been all fun, and I'm sure it has not been fun the last handful of months. This has been a very tough time, and water utilities are often the most underappreciated, most forgotten frontline type workers. I think that goes for utilities writ large, but in particular, people forget water utilities so much in times of crisis. And we are in the midst of a second or third wave of coronavirus, depending on what part of the country you're in. Mm-hmm. What steps has Golden State Water taken to work with customers during these difficult times?
Yeah, well, it sure has been a very difficult year. And, here in California, we've experienced some of the most stringent stay-home orders in the country. Our COVID numbers are, continue to increase throughout the state, as we've seen across the nation. So, our customers have certainly felt just the huge economic impacts, not only all of the social and, just everything else that has come with this pandemic. So, with the unemployment numbers in certain of our service territories in the double digits, we know that this has been a really rough, it continues to be a really, really rough time for our customers. So, early on in the pandemic, the California Public Utilities Commission took a leadership position in instituting a moratorium on shutoffs for non-payment. And, we all thought that was great, and we're ready to do it even without the order, because, at a time when we know, customers are worried about so many things. The last thing they want to worry about is having their water shut off in the middle of a pandemic, for sure, you know? So, so we instituted immediately a moratorium on shutting off any customer. And then shortly after that, the governor of California followed suit and did a similar order. So even the public agencies are following a similar protocols. And so we are still in that place. We're not shutting customers off if they're not able to pay their bills. And so they don't have to worry about that right now during this pandemic. You know, we already had a pretty generous program to assist customers who do fall behind on their payments. We offer a multitude of different payment plans, and we also have a robust low-income customer assistance program. And so what we really wanted to do was bolster that up and communicate out to our customers these other options, because, you know, while we're not turning customers off, we certainly don't want their bills to get so high, you know, that they're just getting further and further behind. And so we really took a proactive approach to communicate frequently with our customers on these alternative payment plans, our low income assistance program, you know, just tried to help them keep up as much as they, you know, could, you know, we certainly didn't want to harass anybody, but just really trying to help them, you know, to stay current as much as possible. We also worked hard with our customers to increase the use of electronic payment options. We closed all of our customer-facing offices to the public. And so, you know, many of our customers that were accustomed to coming in to pay their bills certainly didn't want to have to do that anymore. And, you know, and I can't blame them for that. And we also didn't want to expose our employees to that risk as well. So, you know, to sort of make up for that, we really had to expand different ways that customers could pay their bills or could, you know, communicate with the company. So one of the coolest things that we had instituted right before the pandemic hit, we're in a pilot program where we would print a barcode on our customer bills, and then they could take that bill to a number of outlets, venues, you know, retail outlets, and just pay their bill along with their other, you know, groceries or whatever else they were picking up. You know, if you're going to go to the grocery store anyway, or, you know, down the corner 7-Eleven, you can pay your bill at the same time. And so we quickly ramped that up in a matter of weeks to get it company-wide, because we were just in the middle of this pilot program when it all started, and that has been really successful. So it's just so much more convenient for customers to just be able to pay their water bill along with, you know, whatever else they're buying in a retail outlet. And we did a lot of communications too along the lines of electronic payment options for customers. And boy, we have seen that just really expand to great levels. And I'm hopeful that our customers appreciate that. It's so much easier for them to deal with things online now than to have to, you know, drive to an office kind of a thing. So we're happy about that. You know, in addition to all the concerns about payments and all of that, we also wanted to be sure our customers were confident in the quality of their water. You know, particularly early on in the pandemic, there was just a lot of confusion, of misinformation about how you could get the virus, right? And so we wanted to make sure that our customers knew their water was safe to drink. That wasn't something they had to worry about along with everything else. So, you know, we did a huge campaign to share with our customers the safety of their water and to let them know, first of all, it's safe to drink, safe to use, to wash your hands, and it's not going to get shut off, you know. So we put out a lot of that information. And then finally, one of the things that we did too, you know, recognizing people are now at home because of the stay-home orders here in this state, we actually altered some of our construction programs, as you know, to replace pipe. You do have to shut customers off for a short amount of time while you tie in, you know, their connection to the new main. It's not lengthy, but when people are home and their kids are at home and there's a lot of things happening, boy, that could cause a lot of uncertainty if you're suddenly out of water for a couple hours. And so we did as best we can to alter that program so that we were certainly giving a whole lot of notice ahead of time. If you were going to be shut off for a couple hours, you knew, you know, 2 weeks in advance that on this day, this construction program is going to happen. So, you know, customers had a lot of, you know, information well ahead of time. And then we tried to do it the hours, as much as we could, where it wouldn't impact them the most, so we worked really hard to just kind of look at all the ways what we do every day impacts the customers and try to minimize their worry and minimize, that impact as much as we could. It's just tough times for everybody, for sure.
There's so much to unpack, and I do want to dig in on a few of these programs that you've had, and let's circle back to the pilot turned reality program with paying at the grocery store. And certainly not everybody has that comfortability, even in this digital age, with paying for stuff online. There is a certain segment of the population, and it doesn't necessarily just skew old. It is across age groups do this, that want a physical payment interaction or to mail something in, but clearly that is not as convenient and potentially not as safe during COVID-19. So how has that grocery store program, what type of numbers are you seeing in regards to that in terms of uptake from your customers?
Yeah, so our uptake from our customers, it just exploded, with that. And when under the pilot program, under the PUC rules, we actually had to charge customers for that because it does cost us, with a vendor to do that transaction. But during COVID, we have waived that fee. It's a $2 per transaction fee that we pay to the vendors, but we're just waiving that fee for the customers. And so I think that also helped really expand the use of it. And you're right, a lot of people really aren't comfortable paying online because it requires either access to a bank account or access to your credit card. And not everybody has those either, right? And so often they still do need to pay in cash. And so, gosh, this provides a great way for them to do that. And we're hopeful that the numbers will stay where they are, that, once things get back to normal, we think it's such a great an easy way for customers to pay their bills. And we're hopeful and thinking that those numbers are going to stay high where they are.
Well, I mean, that is exactly the point, that not everything has to or even should go back to the way things were on January 1st of this year. There have been monumental innovations that can make life better, that have made life tolerable during COVID-19, but can make life better when we start to come out from this tragic occurrence. Shifting gears a little bit and still sticking with some of these customer programs, let's talk about those operational programs. You mentioned how critical it has been to assure customers that their water is safe to drink. Still to this day, wearing a mask and washing your hands are the two most important things that people can do to keep themselves safe from the virus. And so what were some of those messages that you were able to put out to customers about the reliability and safety of the water?
Yeah, so we used all of our platforms, our Twitter, our Facebook. We have customer e-newsletters that we put out. We use that to email customers as well and put out messages, not just from our company, but from EPA and CDC that talked about these issues too, so that they had, they could see that there was some oversight, if you will, or that the governmental entities that really know.
Those other trusted sources.
Other trusted sources, exactly. And so we would quote, exactly what the EPA would say or what the CDC would say in our messages to our customers. So even though they're getting them over our platforms, they're getting those trusted sources directly from us. And so we just, continued to do it because you just want to make sure they didn't miss it the first time, right? And just kind of reiterating the same messages over and over again. And so, thankfully we have seen a real, not really a drop. I mean, customers are not calling us concerned about that. so we've seen a real drop in concern about that issue. So I'm hopeful that those messages worked and they got across. But, it's just key. We have found to communicate in so many different ways, so, not everybody does Twitter, not everybody does Facebook, so the emailing, and you just, continue to do everything you can think of to do. It's on our website. And, our website has a language translator on it because there's so many different languages spoken here. And we need to be talking to our customers in the languages that they are comfortable with and that they speak. And so, we're trying to do our best. It's not easy. We're trying to do our best to, get as much out as we can in the most easily understood format for people.
Meeting the customer where they are with the information that you need to tell them, but in the channel that they want, and in the language that they want, and the context that they need, so that they pick up on those critical information, that critical information about safety. But then also, as you mentioned, typically when water work would be done, when a shutoff would happen, water utilities often do that during the workday, and people are at work or at school, and it has a more limited impact on people's life. You get that notice in the mail, oh, okay, all right, at 10 a.m., my water's going to be off. That doesn't bother me. I'm at the office. My kids are at school, no problem. But everybody's home. Not everybody, but many people are home right now. So how have customers taken to that sort of interruption?
Yeah, so I tell you, that part's been a little bit tough. And so, we have certainly, as I said, we tried to alter the schedules as best we could and notify customers up front. And I would say very early on in the pandemic, customers were still, concerned, like, well, why are you doing this? And in many cases, the construction project was already, the ditch was dug. I mean, when this hit and the stay-at-home orders came, we had to keep going. We couldn't just leave the open trenches in, et cetera. And so, while we altered as best we could, there were still things that we had to sort of sew up, just to make the streets safe. But, we had very few customers kind of call us and say, well, what are you doing? Why are you shutting this off right now? And, as we told them, look, it's going to be an hour. We're going to be in and out. We just got to tie this up, shore it up, and then you'll be fine. Everybody was fine. And then since then, as people have become more accustomed to working at home with their kids at home and all of that, I think they've really appreciated the super long notice that we've given them. It's like, okay, next Tuesday, we're going to be down between the hours of, 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. Okay, we can deal with that. School's finished, workday is finished, that'll be fine. And so, I think people are now really very accommodating. I mean, the customers are really very accommodating, and they sort of are getting like, hey, we're all in this together here, kind of all in the same boat. We're all doing the best we can. And, they've been very, very gracious.
We've had some great questions and thoughts come in from the audience, and we've got a few more topics that I also want to get through, but I'll just quick popcorn round of some great thoughts that have percolated to the surface from our audience. There's mention about some, those forever chemicals, PFAS in the water system on the chat right now. Certainly something that many water systems are dealing with around the country. And then a wastewater, a very interesting program that was mentioned, a wastewater treatment program that sort of can identify through some testing when parts of populations have a COVID outbreak experience. And then we also have an offer for shipping some of the Mississippi River water out to California the next time California is in a serious drought. So thank you to our audience.
Water.
Yes. So thank
never
you.
Never down water.
Yeah, right. Thank you to our audience for these great points of conversation, and we will have some further networking time to keep having these types of conversations over the course of the next 2 days. I do want to shift gears and talk a little bit about the next phase of this and looking forward to the economic recovery period. There's an old expression that that basically goes that when things are good, when times are good, plan for when things are in a down phase, and when times are tough, plan for the good. And we are definitely in tough times right now. But what is Golden State Water thinking about, and what should water utilities be thinking about in terms of helping to drive an economic recovery for their respective communities?
Yeah, and I really appreciate that question because, as I've thought about it, and we as a company have thought about, the place our customers are in right now, which is a really tough time, but, the economic engine has got to get going to get out of these, economic hardships. And so, one of the things that we know, and then I think that is a key place for utilities to do, is to keep doing what we're supposed to be doing all along, which is, continuing to replace our aging infrastructure. In our infrastructure replacement program, by maintaining and replacing that and investing in our infrastructure, it has huge, huge impacts on the economic well-being of the communities we serve. And I cringe when I hear about water utilities that are delaying their capital programs because of the financial situation they're in. I think AWWA estimated that drinking water utilities are going to cut back an annualized $5 billion this year. And, that just has such a bad economic trickle effect down. So, there's a lot of great pieces out by the Value of Water campaign and the American Society of Civil Engineers that really points to just the huge economic benefits of investment in water infrastructure. For Golden State, we really work hard to use diverse local vendors in our construction program. And, we're not a huge utility, like some of the big electric and gas utilities. I mean, relatively speaking, we're pretty small. But, last year alone, we spent over $35 million with local diverse vendors in our service areas to do our capital program. Now, if you imagine taking that $35 million out of those communities, those are jobs. Those are, direct hits to our communities that we're serving, right? And so, so we are really looking at this as the way to keep, this economic engine going is to not pull that back. Get those diverse vendors at work, give them the jobs that they need. And then you think about the suppliers, right? Just the basic pipe suppliers and all of that. I mean, it just is such a trickle effect in doing our construction program. And so, our view is that is one of the best ways that we can continue really to serve our communities. I mean, we need to replace our aging infrastructure. There's no question there. But if you think about the economic benefits of doing so at a time like this, it's huge. It's huge.
It really is. And it leads to the next sort of thought beyond even the economic recovery part of this, because as we look at a world beyond COVID, and we really do need to think about that world, there are many other challenges on the horizon related to the water energy nexus. The need to pump, desalinate, and move water is not going to change.
Right.
How can we make sure that we are doing this in a sustainable fashion moving forward?
Yeah, that is such a great question. And it's so interesting because, these challenges have not gone away. While we're dealing with COVID, they have not gone away. And if you've looked at, our need to rely on renewables for sustainability, it's critical. And at the same time, we have to make sure those renewables are reliable. We're talking about treating and pumping water. That's not something that can start and stop when the sun goes up and down, right? And so we had some hard lessons just directly here in California during COVID when we had the heat waves. And I know it was in the news across the nation, but when we had the big heat waves, and frankly, we were in rolling blackouts. And, had it not been for our emergency generators, which are not, renewable supplies, right? And, not your clean energy, but had we not had those generators, we not only would have been in blackouts, but we would have not had water supply. And so, I think it's critical to think about how we can, get the energy that we need that's reliable in all situations. Because, while a blackout is inconvenient, perhaps, but in times of COVID, if you don't have a water supply, that is, not a place that any city in America should ever be in. And so, when we came out of those blackouts and what, I should sit back a second. One of the things that actually helped us, help the state have fewer blackouts is they turned to the water utilities and said, hey, we all know you all have emergency generators. We need you to run them and get off the grid. And so we all proactively, ran our systems off our generators, which definitely helped, reduce the blackouts. But when it was all said and done, we need to step back and have just really hard conversations about how do we fix this. Kind of what happens after an incident like that is, because it hits the news, you get into this sort of blame game and everybody's pointing fingers. And so you're wasting a lot of time and a lot of energy doing that, rather than saying, okay, what do we need to do so that we can continue to use the renewables, yet make sure that we have a reliable system? And so that really needs to be the focus, in my view, going forward. We've got to answer those questions. And we'll just be right back where we were.
Well, and I mean, in the short run, those were the right decisions to make, but that's clearly, as you pointed out, not the sustainable path forward, and not the path forward to tackle the broader issues of systemic climate change that are so critical, not just to California, not just to the United States, but to every person on this planet and every living being on this planet. Mm-hmm. As we wrap up this conversation, I want to circle back to kind of where we started, which is this thought about the customer. Mm-hmm. And whether it is tackling climate change or water conservation, the state of California is clearly taking a leading role in addressing these societal challenges. Mm-hmm. How does Golden State Water actively include your customers in this transformational journey?
We have learned that the best way to do this is to engage with your customers, right? I don't like being talked to. So my customers probably don't like it either. But what works for us is engaging the customers in the conversation. We've held open forums on our Facebook pages, and we've held, share with us your latest idea on how to save water in this context. And we'll even have competitions. And so customers will get involved directly with us. And so we like the term engagement more than communication, because that way we're hearing back from customers. That way I can hear back from them what makes sense and what didn't make sense in my, conversations and communications. And I can hear back from them, what they would prefer to see in terms of, if we're working on conservation programs, what is it that they can more easily implement that makes the most sense from a customer savings point of view versus what my assumption might be? And so it's really that two-way, three-way conversation that is really key in moving the ball forward, rather than just talking to the customers all the time.
What a great note to end on, and that thought of engagement, which of course is one of the three E's: educate, engage, and empower. And that's really what we can do when we put the customer at the center of this. Denise, it is always such a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. It's wonderful to be with you again. I really appreciate it.
Well, I look forward to seeing you again sometime soon, and hopefully the next time it's in person. Until then, stay safe and have a wonderful holidays.
Thank you. You as well.
As we wrap up this conversation, stick around. There's a lot more to come. We are now entering a little break, and we highly encourage you to, of course, get up, stretch your legs. If it's nice where you are, maybe get a bit of fresh air. Or we have some one-to-one networking opportunities on the platform. I highly encourage you to visit the virtual demo booths. And of course, hey, let's have some fun, work towards that gamification points. We'll be back at 3:15 Central Time to have another great conversation. And this time, we're going to be focused on the future of regulation. So thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.